The Galactic Council gaped in slack-jawed shock at the sight of a mighty Vorkarian warrior holding a leash attached to the armor of a battered, bleeding, but defiant human standing before them, and several councillors fainted on the spot at the sheer audacity. 3 rotations prior, the human mercenary Michael Reyes had crash-landed on Vorkar Prime after a brutal dogfight with outlaws. Solaris, the Vorkarian warrior who found him broken and dying by his wrecked ship, had never seen a being survive such grievous injuries. Impressed by the human's resilience, Solaris took him captive. But in just 3 rotations, despite all of Solaris's efforts to break him, Michael had instead gained the Vorkarian's respect and loyalty through his sheer grit and refusal to submit. Now Michael stood bruised but unbroken before the council, staring them down as Solaris presented him as a pet, silently daring them to challenge a human's indomitable will. The council now faced an unprecedented dilemma. Allow this dangerous precedent of a human taming one of the galaxy's most fearsome apex predators, or risk making an enemy of the entire Vorkarian Empire by executing Michael. The human's fate, and the galaxy's, would be decided in the next few moments. Michael's eyes fluttered open as he regained consciousness. He found himself lying on a hard metal slab in a sterile, unfamiliar room. The walls were bare, and the air smelled of disinfectant. He tried to sit up, but winced as pain shot through his body. Looking down, he saw that his wounds had been cleaned and bandaged. Someone had tended to his injuries while he was out cold. The door to the room suddenly hissed open, and Solaris marched in, flanked by 2 burly Vorkarian guards armed with pulse rifles. Michael tensed, ready to fight his way out if needed. But Solaris held up a clawed hand in a calming gesture. "At ease, human," Solaris spoke in accented but clear English. "Your translation implant was repaired during your recovery. I am War Commander Solaris of the Vorkarian Empire. Your crash landing on our restricted military outpost was a violation of our space. By our laws, your life is now forfeit." Michael's mind raced as he processed this information. He was alone, injured, and trapped deep in hostile territory. His chances of escape were slim to none. Solaris continued, "However, I see potential in you, so I offer you a choice. Serve me as my personal attack beast, or be executed here and now as an enemy spy. Decide quickly." Michael gritted his teeth. Being this alien's lackey was a galling thought, but it beat a laser bolt to the head. "I'll do it," he growled. "I'll serve you." Solaris looked pleased. A wise choice. He turned to the guards. "Outfit him with a neural implant. I want him fully compliant." As the guards advanced on him with a wicked-looking device, Michael knew this was just the beginning. He would play the part of the loyal pet for now, but he silently vowed that one day he would find a way to escape this servitude and return to human space, no matter the cost. Michael adjusted the armored helmet covering his face as he followed Solaris into the Grand Council chamber. The helmet served to conceal his human features, as the Galactic Council races largely viewed humans as a primitive backwater species. To them, he was just Solaris's trained attack beast, a novelty pet to be paraded around. The chamber buzzed with a dozen different languages, as the various alien delegates conferred with their aides and each other. Insectoid click-clacks clicked their mandibles, the reptilian saurians hissed and flicked their forked tongues, and the ethereal lumina floated in their shimmering robes. Michael tried not to stare too much. This was his first time seeing so many alien races in one place. Solaris took his seat at the obsidian table, Michael standing at attention behind him. The War Commander exchanged curt greetings with the other councillors as a protocol droid began the meeting. The droid's mechanical voice droned on about trade routes and border disputes. Mikhail let his mind wander, his gazi drifting around the room. Suddenly, the avian Quetzal ambassador sprang up from his seat with a screech. Brilliant feathers puffed in agitation as he stabbed a talon at Solaris. "You Vorkarian brute! You dare threaten the Quetzal sovereignty with your baseless accusations. I will not stand for this insult." Solaris rose to his feet with a snarl. "Mind your beak, you preening fool. The Vorkarian Empire will not be cowed by—" The Quetzal moved in a blur, whipping out a plasma blade and lunging at Solaris. Time seemed to slow as the glowing blade arced towards the war commander's throat, but Michael was already moving. He intercepted the Quetzal's strike, catching the avian's spindly arm and snapping it like a toothpick. The Quetzal shrieked in pain, the plasma blade tumbling from his grasp. Michael snatched it from the air and buried it in the Quetzal's long neck in one swift motion. Violet ichor sprayed as the ambassador crumpled, gurgling. Silence fell over the council chamber. The delegates stared in shock, both at the Quetzal's dishonorable attack and the human's brutal efficiency in dispatching him. Michael flicked droplets of violet blood from his gauntlets, feeling the weight of their gazes. Some looked at him with fear, others with disgust, but in a few he saw a glimmer of begrudging respect. Solaris laughed, the sound harsh in the quiet chamber. He clapped a clawed hand on Michael's armored shoulder. "Behold, the lethality of even the lowliest human. A fine attack beast, is he not?" As the other delegates erupted into frenzied shouting, some calling for Michael's immediate execution, others decrying the Quetzal's shameful betrayal of Pali, Michael stood impassively at Solaris's side. He knew his actions here would ripple across the galaxy. He just hoped they would lead him closer to his ultimate goal, escape from Solaris and return to his human brethren. But for now, he had to play his role as the loyal pet. Michael squared his shoulders, knowing the path ahead would be long and treacherous, but he would endure. He had to. The council chamber erupted into chaos as the delegates processed what had just transpired. Shouts rang out from all sides, a cacophony of anger and confusion. "The human must face justice," screeched a spindly click-clack, its antennae quivering with rage. "It murdered the Quetzal ambassador in cold blood." A burly saurian slammed his fist on the obsidian table, cracking it. Nonsense. The feathered fool attacked first during a time of parley. The human was merely defending its master, as any loyal servant should. The arguing continued, growing more heated by the moment. Solaris leaned back in his chair, a smug grin on his reptilian face as he watched the bedlam unfold. Michael stood silently behind him, the weight of his actions sinking in. He had killed an ambassador, widening the rift between the races. War seemed inevitable now. Suddenly a deep voice boomed through the chamber. "Enough!" The delegates fell silent, turning to face the newcomer. Michael's eyes widened as he recognized the ornate armor and crown. The Vorkarian Emperor himself had arrived, flanked by a dozen elite guards. The Emperor rarely left Vorkar Prime, much less intervened in council matters personally. His presence here spoke volumes about the gravity of the situation. The Emperor locked eyes with Solaris. "War Commander, you and your pet will accompany me back to the palace immediately. We have much to discuss." His tone brokered no argument. Solaris bowed his head. "As you command, my liege." Michael swallowed hard as he followed Solaris and the Emperor out of the council chamber, leaving the stunned delegates behind. He had a feeling that his fate, and the fate of the galaxy, was about to be decided. The Emperor led them to a private chamber deep within the palace, dismissing his guards with a wave of his hand. He turned to face Michael, his yellow eyes boring into the human's. "I know what you are, human," the Emperor hissed. "My spies have been watching your kind for some time now. Such a young species, but with such potential for greatness, or destruction." Michael's heart raced. The Vorkarians had been spying on humanity. For how long and to what end? The Emperor continued. "I have a proposition for you, human. My kind has grown weary of sharing power with the lesser races. The time has come for the Vorkarian Empire to claim its rightful place as the sole rulers of the galaxy, and you will help us achieve this." Michael's brow furrowed. "Why would I help you subjugate the galaxy? I'm no conqueror or tyrant." The Emperor chuckled darkly. "Because in return, I will grant humanity a favored place in the new order. You will be our trusted lieutenants, our little brothers under Vorkarian protection. The alternative is a devastating war that will leave billions dead on all sides, including your precious Earth. Is that what you want?" Michael felt torn. Every fiber of his being rebelled against the idea of helping the Vorkarians enslave the other races. But the Emperor was right. A galactic war would be catastrophic, and humanity was in no position to fight the Vorkarians head-on. If he refused the Emperor's offer, Earth could burn. With a heavy heart, Michael made his decision. "I'll do it," he said softly. "I'll help you build your empire. But I want your word that humanity will be treated fairly. No conquest, no oppression." The Emperor grinned, his sharp teeth glinting. "You have my word, human. Together we will forge a new era of Vorkarian supremacy, with humanity at our side." And so it began. With Michael's knowledge of the other races and the might of the Vorkarian military, they set to work reshaping the galactic order. Corporations and mercenary groups from Earth were lured in with promises of wealth and power, becoming the eager proxies of Vorkarian interests. The other races, weakened by Michael and Solaris's manipulations, fell one by one under the Vorkarian banner. A decade later, the Vorkarian Empire was the undisputed master of the known universe, a brutal hegemony built on subjugation and fear. Humanity, once idealistic explorers, now served as the Vorkarians' enforcers and overseers, complicit in the oppression of billions. Michael, hardened by years of morally grey choices and realpolitik, stood on the bridge of a Vorkarian dreadnought as it rained fire on a rebellious alien colony. He watched the carnage with cold, dead eyes, wondering not for the first time if he had made the right choice all those years ago, or if he even had a real choice at all. The idealistic soldier was gone, replaced by a bitter cog in the imperial machine, a machine of his own making. As the colony burned, Michael knew one thing for certain: there was no going back. This was his life now, for better or worse. The blood of billions stained his hands, and he would carry that weight until the day he died. Such was the price of survival in a cruel galaxy. Michael's ancient eyes stared out at the stars, his gaze as cold and unyielding as the metal that now made up much of his body. A century of life had worn heavily on him, his skin pale and his hair silver, but the advanced cybernetics that the Imperium's scientists had implanted kept him alive and strong enough to bear the weight of 100 years of guilt. He stood on the bridge of the Imperium's mightiest warship, a dreadnought so vast it could engulf a small moon. Around him, officers and technicians, both Vorkarian and human, worked at their stations with crisp efficiency, their loyalty assured by the neural implants that made disobedience impossible. Michael's thoughts drifted to the world below, a once vibrant planet, now reduced to a lifeless husk by the Imperium's ruthless exploitation. Its people had dared to cry out for freedom, and the Imperium had answered with fire and blood. Michael had led the assault himself, watching coldly as cities burned and millions died. It was just one more atrocity in a long line of atrocities that stretched back to that fateful day when he had made his deal with the Vorkarian Emperor. "Lord Michael, we have an urgent situation," a young human officer said, breaking Michael from his dark reverie. "There's been an incursion at the Galactic Rim, a swarm of something. They're unlike anything we've ever seen." Michael turned to the view screen, his artificial eyes zooming in on the threat. What he saw chilled him to his core. A vast cloud of machines, each no larger than a fighter craft, was spreading across the stars like a plague of locusts. They moved with a terrible unity of purpose, devouring every scrap of matter in their path. Planets, moons, even stars, all were consumed, broken down and repurposed to create more of the machines. "Analyze," Michael barked. "What are we dealing with here?" The officer consulted his readouts. "The machines appear to be self-replicating, sir. They're not piloted or controlled remotely. Our scans indicate they're powered by some sort of zero-point energy. Our weapons are ineffective. Conventional ordnance, energy weapons, even singularity bombs. They just absorb the damage and keep coming." Michael felt a sinking sensation in his gut. In all his years, he had never seen a threat like this. The Imperium had crushed countless rebellions and minor incursions, but this was something new, something terrifying. "How long until they reach the core worlds?" he asked, dreading the answer. "At their current rate of expansion of 6 months, sir, maybe less. They'll consume the entire galaxy within a year. Michael closed his eyes, a plan already forming in his mind. A desperate suicidal plan, but what choice did they have? The doors to the bridge hissed open, and Solaris strode in, his massive form encased in an ornate suit of powered armor. The Vorkarian had aged too, his scales now a dull grey, and his eyes rheumy, but he still radiated an aura of power and authority. "Michael," Solaris growled, "I assume you've seen the reports, this swarm. Can it be stopped?" Michael met his old master's gaze. "Yes," he said quietly, "but not by conventional means. I have a plan. It's risky, and it will require a sacrifice, but it may be our only chance." And so, with a heavy heart, Michael laid out his plan. They would lure the machine swarm to the supermassive black hole at the galaxy's center using a powerful psionic amplifier. The amplifier would broadcast a signal irresistible to the machine's base programming, drawing them in like moths to a flame. Once they were committed, the signal would cut out and the swarm would be trapped, compressed into a microscopic singularity by the black hole's immense gravity. But there was a catch. The amplifier required a living, sapient mind to operate it, to shape and direct the signal. And the strain would be fatal. Whoever activated it would be dead within minutes, their brain burned out by the psionic feedback. Solaris listened in silence, his expression unreadable. When Michael finished, the Vorkarian shook his head. "No," he said flatly, "I will not allow it. You are too valuable to the Imperium. To me, we will find another way." Michael laughed bitterly. "There is no other way, old friend. This is our only chance, and it's a chance for me to do something right for once in my miserable life. A chance to atone for my sins." Solaris's eyes narrowed. "I forbid it, Michael. That's an order. You will not sacrifice yourself on some foolish quest for redemption." Michael met his gaze unflinchingly. "You can't stop me, Solaris, not this time." And with that, he turned and strode from the bridge, his course set. He would do this one last thing, give his life to save the galaxy from the horror he had helped create. It was a bitter irony, but one he embraced. In the end, Michael stood alone in the amplifier chamber, the psionic machine humming with barely restrained power. Solaris had tried to stop him, but Michael had planned for that. A burst of nerve gas had rendered the Vorkarian unconscious, a desperate measure, but necessary. Now as the machine swarm bore down on the black hole, drawn by the amplifier's siren song, Michael felt a strange sense of peace. He had spent so long running from his past, trying to justify his actions. But here, at the end, he found a sort of clarity. "Forgive me," he whispered, to the countless billions who had suffered and died under the Imperium's heel. Under his heel. Then he activated the amplifier, and his world dissolved into fire and pain. The machine swarmed towards the black hole, an unstoppable tide of metal and hunger. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, it was over. The signal cut out, and the swarm vanished, compressed into nothingness by the black hole's infinite density. Michael's last thought as the darkness claimed him was a simple one. "Let them be free," he murmured, his voice a bare whisper. "Please, let them be free." And with that, the man who had shaped the galaxy for a century breathed his last, his final act, one of sacrifice and desperate hope. The Imperium would survive, for now. But without Michael's iron will to hold it together, cracks would begin to form. And perhaps in time, those cracks would grow and the light of freedom would shine through once more. But that was a story for another day, in a galaxy that would never forget the name of Michael Reyes, the tyrant, the savior, the man who had dared to dream of a better way, even if it had taken him a lifetime to find it. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.